Lightning split the sky, crackling like the beginning of a storm as the ground trembled. In the middle of the chaos stood a man known far and wide across the martial world. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a legend. His name, Dan Wusung, meant little compared to the title he earned with sheer power, the Fist King. This man, who had once conquered the entire Jianghu using only his bare hands, now stood bloodied and weary after a surprise ambush. Surrounding him were two unfamiliar figures, a sharp-eyed man wielding a katana and a graceful figure with a Japanese fan, who was unexpectedly revealed to be a man. They looked powerful, skilled, and out of place. He didn't know where they came from, but it was clear. They meant trouble. Wusung wasn't one to beg for answers. He spoke coldly, tossing the limp body of one of their own back to them. The injured subordinate, terrified, pleaded for help from the man called Sword Demon. But before the words could even settle in the air, the katana sliced down without a hint of hesitation. The blade cut clean through his own ally, showing no remorse, no mercy. Wusung's eyes narrowed in shock. This wasn't just brutality, it was a message. The cold symbol engraved on the katana confirmed it. These two were members of the notorious demon faction, known for their cruelty and chaos. Despite being outnumbered and weakened, Wusung stood tall. He interrupted the sword demon's mocking praise, declaring with calm determination that he would finish this fight in just 10 strikes. His fists crackled with energy as he assumed his battle stance. The sword demon smirked, thinking this was nothing but arrogance. He rushed forward with a single-minded attack, his blade flashing as he aimed to end it quickly. But Wusung was faster. He dodged every swing and countered with a brutal, thunderous punch that landed directly on the sword demon's body. Wusung began counting, each punch followed by the next, lightning infused in every blow. 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 8. Each strike shook the enemy, and the sword demon could feel the force ripping through his body. But then something strange happened. Wusung's punches began to miss their mark. His fists, though precise, began landing off-center. Confused, he realized his movements were being restricted, like invisible hands were pulling at his limbs. That's when he noticed it. Thin, nearly invisible threads had wrapped around his arm. These weren't ordinary strings, but demon threads, hidden and dangerous. The sword demon had been manipulating the fight all along. Before Wusung could break free, the blade was drawn again. In one swift motion, the katana was driven into Wusung's chest, piercing deep and drawing out a violent spurt of blood. His strength began to fade rapidly. The sword demon, confident the battle was over, spoke triumphantly. But Wusung, refusing to fall so easily, summoned what little strength he had left and drove his final punch toward the enemy. The fist. The fist never landed as his body collapsed mid-swing, lifeless. The sword demon backed away slowly, impressed. He admitted the Fist King was truly worthy of his title. Behind him, the other figure, a man with the Japanese fan, remarked on how close that punch had come to landing. The sword demon nodded, thankful for the subtle help he'd received. The fan-wielding man had apparently played a hidden role in weakening Wusung. As the sword demon approached Wusung's fallen body, he couldn't help but mock him. He poked at the Fist King's face with a finger, casually speaking as if Wusung could still hear. But just as he finished speaking, Wusung's eyes opened one last time. In a final flash of defiance, his fist shot up and slammed directly into the sword demon's face, knocking him back and leaving him bloodied. It was the 10th punch, his last, but the one he had promised from the beginning. After that, Wusung could feel his vision fading. His body grew cold, his strength gone. He accepted that his journey as the Fist King had come to an end. As death crept over him, his only regret was not being able to strike one more time. And with that, the mighty warrior who had ruled the martial world fell to the dirt, slain by the demon faction. But the story didn't end there. Far away from the battlefield, in a time long before the chaos, in an ancient mountain safe house hidden within Jihua. A bright light appeared, glowing in the silence of an old castle-like structure. Inside, a woman stared in shock at the figure lying unconscious on a bed. She rushed to his side, her voice filled with worry as she tried to wake him up. The man lying there wasn't just anyone. It was Dan Wusung. As Dan Wusung slowly regained consciousness, a wave of confusion washed over him. He sat up, grabbing his head, trying to make sense of where he was and what had happened. From behind him, a gentle voice called out, offering him water. A young woman handed him a glass and addressed him as First Young Master, a title that struck him as odd. Accepting the drink, he tried to make sense of why she was calling him that. Then, as he caught his reflection in a nearby mirror, the truth began to unravel. The face staring back wasn't his. His hands trembled and he coughed, spitting out the water in shock. He leaned in closer to inspect the unfamiliar face. At first, he thought it was some sort of disguise, maybe a mask. But there were no seams, no signs of an illusion. It was real. The face was new. It was not his. Just as panic began to rise, the woman rushed out of the room in a hurry, saying she would fetch the physician. The sound of the door slamming shut echoed in his mind. Left alone again, he pieced things together. This wasn't some illusion conjured by the demonic faction. If they were capable of this kind of resurrection, they would have already dominated the entire martial world. No, this was something beyond their power. It wasn't sorcery or trickery. It felt too natural, too real. The only explanation left, however unbelievable, was reincarnation. Turning back to the mirror, he stared at his unfamiliar reflection and questioned who this person truly was. He stood up slowly, feeling the difference in his movements right away. His body was weak, unstable, like a newborn deer struggling to take its first steps. It lacked strength and balance. He grimaced. This new body was, by all standards, completely useless. As he tried to walk, his legs barely cooperated and his arms felt as though they had no power in them. Near the bed, his eyes caught sight of a wooden box with writing etched into it. The name carved into the surface sent a small jolt of recognition through him. Yunha Merchant Group. They were one of the largest merchant organizations based near Juhua Mountain, and their influence was widespread. Opening the box, he found letters addressed to someone named Li Jin Eon, the eldest son of the merchant group's leader. The more he read, the clearer the picture became. The man whose body he now occupied was a spoiled heir, someone who had wasted his life on gambling, women, and useless luxuries. Letter after letter mentioned debts, broken promises, and shameful behavior. Wusung let out a heavy sigh. Of all the people he could have reincarnated into, it had to be this disgrace. He felt no strange energy within the body, no magical force that hinted at enchantment. The truth settled in slowly but surely. He had been reborn, not through magic, but through some mysterious twist of fate. Still, part of him questioned whether he had simply lost his mind. Suddenly, the door burst open again, and a man entered hurriedly, calling him by the same title, First Young Master. This was the physician. The man's words were overly polite, filled with fake concern, claiming he had heard something was off about his condition. As Wusung listened and responded with calm dismissal, he began to study the physician more closely. The man's slick attitude and forced cheerfulness reminded him of a snake, always slithering around with hidden motives. Soon the physician returned with a bowl of soup, claiming it had always been prepared for him in his sickly state. The name of the dish, Dragon Phoenix Soup, sounded grand, and the physician boasted of its health benefits. But Wusung could see through the act. He knew this kind of soup might work well for someone already strong and healthy, but for someone as physically weak as Li Jin Eon, it was overkill. It would do more harm than good. The timing of it all felt suspicious too, as if the physician had noticed that something was different and was now trying to test him. The physician made another comment about how eating the soup regularly would allow even someone like him to participate in the Dragon Phoenix martial competition. That mention triggered a thought. Wusung asked how long the competition had been going on. The physician answered that it had been held for nearly 200 years. That information, though small, was incredibly important. It meant that not much time had passed since Wusung's death. The world he once knew wasn't too far removed from the one he now found himself in. That meant the demon faction could still be alive, hidden somewhere in the shadows. Wusung pretended to lose interest in the soup and asked to be left alone. The physician left, closing the door behind him. Finally alone, Wusung stared at the ceiling and thought deeply. He had been granted a second life, but this time, in a world full of manipulators, cowards, and false smiles. People like the sly physician and the pathetic Li Jin Eon represented everything he despised. But this was also a chance to rebuild, a chance to rise again. The body might be weak, but his mind, experience, and will were still his own. He had fought and conquered once before as the Fist King, and he would do it again. Slowly, he clenched his fist, feeling his resolve grow stronger. Every snake, every schemer, every demon from the past or present, he would face them all. Not with armies or magic, but with one thing alone, his fists, one punch at a time.